Hello friends, we're back for video 2 of Duneuary. Dune! It's a book! So Dune, I've now read Dune. I've done my spoiler-free review, which you can see on the channel. It's uploaded yesterday. If you are watching this video, I'm assuming you've already read it, so we don't need to worry about spoilers. So let's talk about, first of all, as I mentioned in the review, this blurb. The blurb literally, it starts off by just saying, oh yeah, you know, spice melange, it's important. And then, like, the third paragraph is like, when the Emperor betrays House Atreides and the Harkonnens kill all of them, Paul and Jessica have to flee across the desert and join up with a band of Fremen, and Paul will become, like, their leader. Like, it's just like, you spoiled the first two... Like, spoilers for the first 400 pages of Dune, I guess, on the back of this book. So he's like, yeah, I don't know about that. I don't know how I feel about that, because in the book, I guess that a lot of that is really spelt out for you at the start. Like, people say, like, oh, we're going to get betrayed and all die. But I think there's a little part of you that hopes that it won't happen, if you don't know that it definitely will. Even though it seems like, you know, obviously, that people do have a sort of reluctance to know that that is going to happen. I guess it's really like an indictment of the whole spoiler culture. Like, knowing what is going to happen doesn't affect the quality of the material that you're reading. That's my philosophy on spoilers anyway. And I read this blurb like halfway through reading the book, when I'd already knew what was going on here, and I was like, well, that's a bit odd. But maybe, I don't know, if someone can try and confirm, do all editions of Dune have that in the blurb, or is it just because this is like a 50th anniversary edition? I don't know. The other features of the book itself that I wanted to address, these appendices in the back are quite boring. If this material had been front loaded in an intro, like in a prologue, if this was like a Tolkien style thing, and all of the material from these appendices about the religion and the political structures of the universe, if that was right at the beginning, I probably would have put the book down, because it was really dry, and I don't think it was necessary to have them in there. I can see why people would like them as a bit of extra, like, if people are obsessed, I guess, and they want to, like, tap out a Wikipedia entry about Bene Gesserits or something. But I think a lot of it was explained adequately enough for the story that was being told in the book itself, that I don't think they were necessarily needed. So let's talk about some of the things that I thought were just superb in the book. First of all, the Bene Gesserit Sisterhood. What a fascinating organisation that was to read about. Like, at first you aren't so sure what their function is, and then later on, like, you start to realise what they are. Like, they've got this whole like the genetic, it's basically a eugenics program to create a super being that can control the world, but for their own ends, right? That's their whole plan. It's like they've infiltrated politics to the point where they now control the fates of all these great houses and who's going to sit on which throne. And the just fascinating thing about them was when, like, Jessica and Paul are stranded in the desert, and then they meet the Fremen, and the Fremen are talking about these legends, and we hear about the Missionaria Protectiva, which it turns out, like, this is like a group of people who are exploiting like rubes, basically. They sent out these people to create these myths and legends that would support them, so that when people would come across these people later on, they'd be more inclined to help them, because they'd be like, oh my goodness, yes, you are prophetess, you are, like, you're the chosen one, because this is a thing that's been planted in them over thousands and thousands of years earlier, for a sinister purpose, which is that's fascinating to me, like how religion is used as a form of control, and as a tool in a political scheme, and that's mentioned later on in one of those boring appendices, that the emperor basically used religion, like he was, like, it's said that he's agnostic and the Space Guild is agnostic, because they know, right, they're corrupt essentially, so they know it's all a sham, but they use religion, like they give it to the masses, as a form of, like, it's the Marx thing, right? It's the opium for the masses. Like, it's just there to keep them in line, to give them something. There was a quote, as one of the chapter headings, that I think summed it up really well, which was, control the courts and the coin, and leave the rest to the rabble. So it's like he's taking what's important and just like all this other stuff he doesn't care about. He's using it to keep people happy, which is a fascinating angle to take in a space society. The Empire itself, I thought, was a little two-dimensional. Like, the Harkonnens are super evil, and you know that because, like, the Baron Harkonnen is like this super fat guy with these, like, anti-gravity things on his gut to keep it so he doesn't have to be heavy as he moves about. And his nephew is like called the Beast Raban, and his other nephew is like a fucking psychopath that just murders slaves all the time. So it's like this really clear black and white with the Atreides, who are presented to us as super good and noble. But then I'm starting to think now that whose perspective was this story from? Like, is Dune in essence another book by Princess Irulan about Muad'Dib? Is it just propaganda for the Atreides now? Because, like, all of their enemies are so wicked and corrupt, and it talks about, like, these elite soldiers, like the Sardaukar, who are basically nothing in the face of the Fremen. Like, they are murdered like 5-1 by Fremen, and before this they were like the most unstoppable fighting force of all time. And now I'm just wondering, like, are all of these just bigged up legends from over time? Did all of this really happen as it's laid down? Who knows? Who can say? Maybe Brian Herbert can tell us. But who knows? I don't. I'm just speculating here. So, yeah, like, I found it difficult to root for the Atreides, because I kind of saw past the veil in a way. Like, they're on a thopter ride, which I'm guessing is like a plane that flaps from the way it's described. So they're in a thopter early on in the book, and they've just got to Dune, and like Gurney Halleck, who is like one of the Duke's top guys, like, he's talking about, oh, we've already started sending propaganda out to the towns that the Duke is the best. What the fuck? Like, these are not the tactics of good people. You shouldn't have to tell everyone that they should be on your side. If you're actually good, they should probably just be on your side without having to be lied to about it. Yeah, and there's a lot of other sort of weird things that happen, especially in the first half of the book. Like, there's a weird scene at the dinner table where, like, a guy is trying to be threatening towards Paul for some reason, and I don't quite understand why it was all there. I think the purpose was to just build up like the network of enemies, to make it seem that it would be more difficult to overcome. And I don't think it ever really went anywhere with them, because I think that guy died like shortly afterwards, because the Harkonnen attack happened. So yeah, I don't know if there was any real purpose to a lot of that. I really liked the scenes between Jessica and like the other members of the household. Like when she's speaking with Thufir, and he suspects she's a traitor, and she's potentially suspects him of being a traitor, and they're talking back and forth about who the traitor is and stuff, and you get this inner monologue of them trying to like fucking outmaneuver each other, right? Those were really interesting scenes, and the one that piqued my interest the most was when she becomes suspicious of the doctor, Yui, who is the traitor, but then just as she's about to like confront him, and he's like, oh no, if she confronts me, I'll definitely just tell her the truth. She just goes, I could confront him, but, you know, I should probably trust my friends more. And then you're like, as the reader, you're like, no, you were so close. You could have avoided all of this. But she didn't, you know, because it was all prophecy. And let's talk about that prophecy. So as soon as Paul lands on Dune, and the Fremen start seeing him, like they're calling him Lisan al-Gaib, which is like their prophet Messiah, straight away. And you constantly hear about all these things that are prophecy, like Liet Kynes, who is like the planetologist. Yeah, planetologist. So he's like a guy who works for the Emperor, who has basically just become Fremen now. But he like sees Paul, and like in his head he's like, oh my god, like he can't help but remember the prophecy, because Paul is meeting all the criteria for it, basically. So Paul is meeting these criteria as the prophet of the Fremen. But as it turns out, the prophecies of the Fremen are very much in line with the stated goals of the Jenny Besseret, right? So Paul is like the Kwisatz Haderach, is the term they use for it. He's like the super being, because he can see essentially all of time and space. He basically becomes a Time Lord, or just reads the novel during the time when he crashes in the desert, so he just knows what's going to happen. So he does that, and then you realise that the Missionaria Protectiva have created a prophecy so that their prophet, like their chosen super being, is going to be hailed as like the religious leader of these fucking weird fanatics, which is superb. Like it's so well done in how layered it is and how you discover it all as a reader. It's just very impressive. Yeah, I mean, there's really not a whole lot more I can say about Dune. I'm kind of shell-shocked from it still, because it is a super long book, and I spent the last 5 hours today just finishing off the last bit of it, because I'm a slow reader, guys. I just am. So that's really all I have to say on the book itself. In the next video, I'm going to be talking about the other masterpiece, David Lynch's Dune. Oh yes, we're going there. I've seen it, so you don't have to. So next time we're going to be talking about David Lynch's Dune. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you're not. Thumbs up for Duneuary, and I'll see you next time. Bye.